has God actually called me to do this thing? That was just like a prayer that was done just out of like sheer desperation. Like, God, like, why didn't you do something? If that happens one day later, I've already quit. I've already like cut ties. I've already done everything.
Hello, and welcome to Crazy Amazing God Stories, where ordinary people share extraordinary moments of God revealing His power, grace, and love in our everyday lives. I'm your host, David Ledbetter, and today I want to talk about reassurance. Have you ever been to a restaurant or a bar when you walk in and the hostess just continued working and didn't even notice you? It leaves you wondering, did she see me? Should I just keep waiting? Should I ask if she saw me? What should I do? Or have you ever texted someone about a change in plans and wondered if they saw the message? Because they didn't text back a simple okay? Just hearing "I'll be right with you" from the hostess or a thumbs up from an important text would make a big difference. I mean, technically, nothing changes, but it makes the struggle or wait so much easier, knowing that everything is fine. Today's guest is a veteran when it comes to following Jesus, but even he has wrestled with knowing if he's on the right path. Having faith in Christ helps a lot, but there's nothing like getting a thumbs up from God to know you're doing the right thing. He's here to tell us a story about how God is never late, how in one case God reminded him of his mission in his darkest hour, and in another situation, God told him to keep the faith when he and his wife had every reason to be concerned. Please welcome to the podcast, Nick Allen. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Dave.
Good to see you. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, appreciate the invite.
I'm really excited about hearing your story. When you told it to me on the phone the other day, I was shaken a little bit, honestly, because I think it's such a common struggle that people have. So I'm going to start off with a couple of simple things that are fun to talk about, so we can get rolling. But so tell me, what do you do all day? What's your main job? What do you do?
I'm actually a pastor, a primarily youth pastor, amongst a variety of other things. But yeah, work at our church. Love it. I wouldn't want to do anything else, to be honest. But I love teenagers. Love youth ministry. Love the craziness that can come with being with teenagers a lot. But yeah, it's the joy of my life. Genuinely, I love it.
What does the day of a youth pastor look like? You get up in the morning, and what do you do?
So it can look like a variety of things, and because we have like a weekly youth service every Wednesday, and so there's a part of like preparing for that and like preparing a message that I want to give to our students and putting together services and those kind of things. But also, what I think and what I enjoy actually the most about youth is doing things that are outside of what happened on a church, like going to grab ice cream or something with the students, or kind of just talk things through whatever they're going through. And like I just find so much fulfillment in just in having like genuine, authentic conversations. But like, hey, where are you at? Like, what's happening in your life? Like, what are the things that you're dealing with? I think especially just because in the time that we live in, the things that teenagers deal with today are so foreign to even myself. Like, I'm only 31 years old, but the things that they deal with today are things that I never would have had to walk through when I was their age. And so
I can imagine that's a totally different world than what.
Yeah. And even just like things like mental health is such a more prominent thing within teenagers than it was when I was in there. I just think there's so many things that within teenagers that I just like love the opportunity to be able to like sit with them in their situation, whatever they walk through, and say, hey, like how can God work through this in spite of what you think, in spite of what we feel. And so there's a lot of things that kind of happen in a week to week basis. But
do you find that kids are easier or more difficult to open up to you? Are they willing to tell you what's going on in their minds and in their heart, or are they a little more guarded?
That's funny. Honestly, I think kids are more likely to be open. Because I think sometimes as adults that we have more of I guess a pressure to want to like have the appearance that everything is going great in our lives. Like everything is good, everything's fine. Whereas if you ask students, they're so much more likely to just be like, hey, like this is actually what's happening. Like I've had a kid this past week who was like, just like tell me all like the terrible things he's done at home. Like, yeah, like I did this thing that my parents didn't like, but I did it anyways. And like he just like is really open about the things that he's doing and
totally candid, just like this is what I did. I broke this rule and I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, like no shame, but and they're I think they're just willing to just be. I just think teenagers in this generation is so I think hungry for just like transparency and authenticity at whatever expense. And so that could be a very refreshing thing to be able to talk to teenagers, and they're so open and we'll tell you what they think, and even if it's going to hurt your feelings sometimes.
They consume a lot more media than we did as kids, and so I imagine authenticity is their authenticity meter is substantially more critical than ours was. We were like, wow, I believe everything I hear pretty much, but they're like, no, I don't believe you.
It's I think because they're so often like with social media, they're so often facing things that they know are not real, that it's easy for them to snuff out something that they don't feel is authentic or genuine. Like if they think that this feels inauthentic, like they're very abrasive to it. I think because that just the way like social media is, there's so much inauthenticity on social media that it makes it, and because they're so engaged within it, that it makes it easier for them, or they're more, I guess, like aware of when someone is just not being real with them, and which again, like as an adult, as we often want to like want everything to appear that everything is great and perfect in our world.
They're not burdened with that, are they?
Not at all. Not at all.
So let me ask you, what do you do when you're not pastoring students? What do you guys like? You and your wife, you guys like to go out to eat? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm a huge foodie. Like I'm very adventurous when it comes to eating. Like I don't think there's any like cuisine type that I would not eat. I love Indian, I love Mediterranean, love Greek. The funny thing is, because my wife is Hispanic, I'm actually not a huge fan of Mexican food.
Wow, that's I don't think I've ever heard someone say that.
Yeah, not a huge fan. I don't know. For me, like, and I'll probably take some heat from this, but I just feel like a lot of Mexican cuisine is like the same thing formatted in different ways.
Well, that's definitely true. I don't think anybody would argue against that.
Yeah,
but it is. I mean, a taco and a tostada. I mean, it's the shape of the tortilla, pretty much.
Yeah, I will say, however, the caveat. I actually really love New Mexican food, like the green chili and everything that's in that. I love New Mexican food.
I think you just saved yourself with that.
Dude. If I could, like...
there's a big difference between Arizona Mexican food and New Mexico Mexican food.
It's so different, because my wife spent some time growing up in Albuquerque. And so a couple years ago, we actually went there, and like she was just so stoked to try all the like the food places, like Blake's Lotta Burger, like green chili on a burger. There's nothing like it.
That's great. You just named some good places. My girl's from New Mexico also, and she cooks Mexican food, and she's very, very opinionated when it comes to that. Which, if you try stuff, don't get me wrong, I like all Mexican food, but there is a difference between New Mexico Mexican food and Arizona Mexican food.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Are you a movie buff at all? You like to do anything?
Yeah. So I used to be really into movies a lot. I feel like now not so much. I think it's just more like a time thing with like being married and like being like working in church, but also like having our two kids. I feel like a lot of our time was just eating up. I do enjoy movies. I don't go as often. Like when I was like before we were married, or kind of like in our early stages of our marriage. Like I was really into all the Marvel movies. Like I was a huge movie fan for that. Like I love Lord of the Rings, love Star Wars. I love like all the big franchises. So I do enjoy movies. But unfortunately, at least in this season of my life, I don't necessarily watch as much as I probably would prefer to.
I might get eaten alive for saying this, but I got to be honest. I'm 55 now, and I saw Lord of the Rings for the first time last year.
Dang. Okay. So here's the real question. Did you like it?
I enjoyed it. It was a little long, and sometimes some of the fantasy stuff, all the rules are this, but there's that's a little hard for me. But I did enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, the costumes are incredible. I mean, the characters are really. I mean, it's good writing. It's good it's good fantasy.
Mhm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
but that's the first time I saw it. I've seen the Star Wars, so nobody can give me a hard time about that.
Yeah.
I've always loved Star Wars. I saw Star Wars in the theaters, but the Lord of the Rings thing was every time that would come up, I was like, I'm not saying nothing.
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like that movie has aged so well. Like you look at it, it doesn't feel like it's an old movie when you watch it because I just feel like it's such a masterpiece for its time. But yeah, I do feel like Lord of the Rings is one of those movies that people like not like judge, but like people will like they want to know like if you're a real movie buff, like have you seen Lord of the Rings? Like they kind of that's like the barometer of how they
Yeah, that's
they
why I
gauge.
shut my mouth when it comes up because I'm like, ooh, these people are going to go, what?
Yeah, but yeah, I love Lord of the Rings. One of my favorite movies. for
Is
sure.
your wife a movie fan?
She watches a lot of TV shows. I actually, it's funny, speaking of Lord of the Rings, I tried to get her to watch Lord of the Rings early on and she wasn't into it. Like she couldn't do it for whatever reason. But at one point I bought the extended version. So if you've seen those are like a full hour long. Each one is like 4 hours long. And so I had her watch those and so I was like, okay, since you don't like the original ones, like give these 4 hour long movies a try, which in hindsight was a risk, but she ended up liking the extended versions because they're just a lot more like fleshed out. But yeah, she'll go to the movies with me generally speaking, but she's not like a huge like movie buff or anything like that.
Okay, cool. So you like good food, you like good movies. That's very nice. All right, let's get into your story. I'm excited about hearing it. So technically, you have a couple of different instances that are kind of similar. And so get us started. Tell us, when it started, what happened.
Yeah, so it started in 2016. And at this point, like early on in my life, when I was around 5, I just like felt that God had called me into ministry. And so
When you were 5?
when I was no, it's not 5, 5th grade.
Oh, fifth
grade. Wildly different. 5th grade.
Still pretty young though.
Yeah, 5th grade. And so during this time in 2016, kind of like actively pursuing what ministry is supposed to look like. I'm pursuing getting credentials to be a pastor, to do like the pastoral things. I'm currently in an internship. Working at a church in the youth department to just like get experience and just to kind of like prepare myself for what like I felt God had called me to do. But in January of 2016, we were putting on this event up in Prescott it was a 1 night, 2 day, 1 night thing. It was a 3 days, 2 night thing event. And the last night, like we had this service going on, and kind of up to this point, I'd already kind of started to feel a bit discouraged because
How old were you at this point? Now that you got the calling in the 5th grade,
yeah,
you went ahead and started doing it. How old are you when you go to this event?
at this point 21.
Okay, so you're further down the road. You've been doing what you
Yeah, correct.
supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm also at the time taking like online like college courses I'm just kind of doing everything that I can to kind of prepare me for that. But during the January of 2016, up to that point, I kind of really started to question like has God actually called me to do this thing? It felt like that all this time that I was investing, all this effort that I was doing, that I had nothing to show for it. Like I couldn't point to like this thing or that thing to say, hey, like I've been able to do or accomplish this thing. There's no like results that I'm achieving. It felt
You weren't
like
seeing the mile markers show up. I did this and then this and then.
no, yeah, not at all. It felt like kind of the hamster wheel analogy. I'm just kind of going on this hamster wheel over and over and just like making no progress, getting nothing accomplished.
Do I just think God told me to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, and I was genuinely questioning if God had actually called me to do this. And so we get to the last night of this event that we're putting on for students. And it's the last service, and like there's worship music and this big room full of like 60 students. And they have like, they call students up to the front to respond to what had the speaker had spoke on. And I'm just sitting in my seat. And with like basically the whole room is up at front towards the stage, like having their moments with God. And I'm just sitting in my seat in this big room.
Had you seriously considered getting out of ministry at this point, or are you?
Yeah. So honestly,
just questioning at this point.
Yeah. At that point, I was genuinely kind of like I'm not going to do this anymore if like I have nothing to show for it. And so I was legitimately prepared to go back the next day and say, hey, like I'm quitting this internship. I'm not going to continue with my
Oh,
college
wow.
degree. Like I was like I felt so frustrated that that I was like I refuse to do this if I'm not like doing anything, kind of a thing. I just
So
felt
you
like
were
it
at
was.
the end of your you were at the end of your rope.
Yeah.
You were ready to throw in the towel.
Yeah. I was just I was, I guess, as frustrated as, and it's funny in hindsight now, like it seems silly, but I just felt so frustrated and so, um, kind of like unqualified. Like if I'm called into ministry, like if you were to look at my life, like what do I have to show for it? I just felt like this like unqualification that they like maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm just kind of like this is all in my head, and I've been doing this thing in my own will, and I'm really not supposed to be doing it, kind of a thing. And so that the last night when all these students are up and I'm sitting just in my seat by myself, and I'm just kind of praying to myself, praying to God, and I'm like God, like I'm done. Like I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm not going to keep um, striving. I'm not going to keep putting my efforts into doing this. Like literally tomorrow, I'm going to walk into the church and I'm going to tell them like, hey, I'm done. I'm quitting. Like this isn't for me. And and as I'm praying that by myself, I feel somebody come up and like touch me on the front of my shoulder.
Hey there, and thanks for listening. If you're enjoying this story, be sure to hit that like, follow, or subscribe button so you can hear other amazing stories from other ordinary people sharing how God has revealed his power, grace, and love in their everyday lives. If you know anyone who needs to hear this story, don't hesitate to share it. It could make all the difference to them. Back to the story.
Uh, and as I'm praying that by myself, I feel somebody come up and like touch me on the front of my shoulder. And I open my eyes, and it's one of the students that we had in our youth ministry, and he just has tears in his eyes, um, and he just begins to say like these are the things, like I'm struggling with these things, like I can't get these things out of my life, like these things are what I'm walking through, and I just feel like I need to come tell you this, and I feel like God told me that I need to ask you to help me to walk through this. And in that moment, like it was in this exact same moment when I'm literally praying to God, like God, I'm done. God, I'm not doing this anymore.
There's no results.
There's nothing that I've done that I can point to. In the midst of my frustration and complaining, like this teenage boy walks up because he felt like God had told him to come up to me and ask for me to help him. And just in that moment, I just felt kind of, and to be honest, I kind of felt guilt, like here I am questioning God, and God has literally brought this teenager to show me like I've not left you, like I've not abandoned you, like what you're doing has purpose, and I've placed you here for a purpose. Even if, and I'm reminded of the Bible talks about how Jesus goes after the one. Like even if God had placed me there just for this one teenage boy, that's all that mattered. And so yeah, just in that moment, and again, just in the midst of me complaining to God.
Maybe he placed that teenage boy there for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because in without like diving into the details, the things that he had expressed to me that he like was struggling with and that he just like couldn't shake off were things that I had experienced in my own life, and I could speak from my experience of like, hey, like I've gone through this. I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like, and I can personally walk you through like how to move past this thing.
You were the perfect person to help this kid.
Yeah. And it took God bringing him to me to remind him that God doesn't make mistakes, to remind me that I am called, and to remind me that God, even in my own frustration and my own feeling that God had kind of forgotten and abandoned me, God reminded me that he had placed me there for a purpose and on a purpose. And even if I couldn't see the results of that, God still doesn't make any mistakes. And I feel like in that moment, I needed to be reminded that even though I didn't feel it, God was still like walking me through that. Even though I didn't feel like God was using me in any capacity, God was still walking me through that. And he used that boy to speak that message to me, to just pull me out of my complaining, to pull me out of my um, feelings of inadequacy and feelings of being disqualified. God used that teenage boy to remind me that what God does and what God says never changes, no matter what.
Well, he is never late, is he? He came right on the
Yeah.
last day.
Yeah. Yeah. If that happens one day later, I've already quit. I've already like made cut ties. I've already done everything. But literally on the eve of night that I've decided to make this decision, God like grabs a hold of my attention and says like, no, like I'm not done. And this is what I've called you to do. Like, just stay faithful, trust me. And I think, I just think like in my life, and just there are a lot of things. I think of like a parent that sometimes as a parent, like you tell your kid to do something and you know what's best, and you just want them to trust you. You just want them to be like, hey, like you told me to do this. I'm just going to do it because I trust that you have my best interest in mind. And in that moment, it was a reminder of like I don't need to see tangible physical things to be reminded that I need to trust in God. Like I should be able to trust in God whether things are happening the way that I want them or not. Like God is always good, and I can always trust in the way that I want my kids to trust me. I can always trust in what God says and what he does.
Do you still know the kid? Do you know what happened to him?
Yeah. He ended up, right now he's actually married. He's married, working for a church and doing really incredible things. And like
so he's working for a church as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's such a good guy. I love him. He's the man. I love him.
That's a really beautiful story.
Mm.
That's a really good one. It's hard for us when we go through the desert and we wonder if we're going the right direction,
Mm.
if we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
God showed up at the last minute, right on time, with the exact right message for you.
Yeah. Never late.
That's a beautiful story.
Never late.
All right. I want you to tell me that the other story that you have in store for us today.
Yeah.
This one's really, really powerful. Get ready.
So this next one happens. It'd be 2018. At this point, me and my wife are already married. We'd had our first child in 2017, and around May of 2018, we knew we were already pregnant. We'd already announced it.
So you're pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second one's on the way.
Yep. And this, I remember it was a Cinco de Mayo because my wife being Hispanic, we were just at my parents' house, just kind of celebrating it. But I remember sitting in the living room, just on the couch. At this point, Britt is about 12 weeks pregnant around that time. I remember sitting on the couch, and Brittany gets up to go do something, and then a few minutes later, all I hear is just Britt starts yelling out my name, Nick. And it was one of those things like you can hear by the way that somebody says something, like you know that something's wrong.
Panic in her voice.
Yeah. And so I get up, I go, and there are these things that are happening that we just know, like something's wrong. So we get up, we go to the car, we leave Sienna, our daughter, with my parents. We get in the car. She gets on the phone with her OB, just to figure out like, hey, like what am I supposed to do? They don't pick up. She leaves a voicemail, and so we get in the car. And my only thought is like, we just need to go to a hospital. We need to go somewhere to try to figure out like what are we supposed to do? So we're driving in the car, and at this point, to kind of connect to the other one, We were youth pastors at a church, so we'd gone through the internship, and we were presently youth pastors at another church. And so we're driving to the hospital.
And you assume there's something wrong with the baby.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what all of the
Yeah. Without getting to, like,
signs were telling.
yeah, without the detail of it, like it was clear that there was something that was wrong that had to do with the pregnancy of the baby. Like it was very clear to us. And so we're driving to the hospital, and I just begin to pray, like God, like I know who you are, God. I know what you're capable of doing, God. I know that you can do miracles, and just begin to pray with it, literally with a faith that I don't think I've ever had. That was just like a prayer that was done just out of like sheer desperation. I just begin to pray like God, just keep this baby safe. We're driving, and before we even get to the hospital, the OB calls Britt back, and she puts it on speaker because I asked her to, so I can hear what they're saying. And basically the OB tells us like, hey, like we listen to your voicemail, and from everything you're telling us, it sounds like you're having a miscarriage. So don't go to the hospital. You really just, I would just tell you to go home and just kind of let the process run its course. And
So what, based on what you guys told the OB,
like she had no doubt that it was a miscarriage. That it was the beginning stages of a miscarriage that was about to happen.
so even going to the hospital isn't going to help.
Yeah.
Just go home and get comfortable.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we get off the phone. And again, you could say that from my perspective as being a pastor, I guess you could say, she got the phone, and I remember
Pain is still with you, isn't it?
Yeah. It's I don't share this often because yeah. She gets off the phone, and I just begin. I remember I said the words to Britt, like, I refuse to accept or believe that. And again, I just continue to like to pray, just like praying that God would stop it, that God would like stop this from happening, that God would do something.
God would never let this happen, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was so convinced that I know that He's capable of doing it, and so I know He's going to do it. So we pray. We turn around, go pick up our daughter from my parents, and go home. And then just over the remainder of the day, like as the OB had said, the miscarriage just runs its course. Everything happens.
So you, in fact, had a miscarriage.
Yeah. Yeah. And personally, man, how the question that I would run into, and I struggled with for so long, is here I am, a youth pastor, talking to these students about who God is, and what God can do, and how good God is. And yet here I am, having believed for God to do something, and it didn't happen. And so I had this like tension of like, I want to tell these students of who God is, but right now I'm not experiencing that thing for myself at all.
Questioning your own faith?
Yeah, I am, like, legitimately.
Did you feel disappointed or angry at God?
Everything. It was a mixture of frustration. It was a mixture of confusion of like why did this even happen? It was a mixture of obviously like of grief and everything. And I just remember I remember vividly just times I'd be driving by myself to work or different places, and I would just yell, just like I'd scream at the top of my lungs, like God, like, why didn't you do something? Um, and so just over the next few months, like we're just trying to honestly just trying to work through that and kind of wrestle with that with ourselves. And thankfully we had a community of like a distinct couple um, who had multiple miscarriages, and they were able to kind of like help and navigate us through that, to someone who had walked through that themselves, and we're so thankful for them. Um, but we kind of worked through it, and we fast forward. So this again happened May in 2018. We fast forward to the very end of the year, because we always knew, because we had kids, seeing our first daughter early.
So you know she can have kids. It's not like
Yeah,
there's something wrong with
correct. Yeah. So we knew we were still capable, or still able to do that. Like we weren't given any kind of like, there's no like diagnosis that like this is no longer an option kind of a thing.
So she saw a doctor, and the doctor said, well, everything seems fine. You might have just had a miscarriage.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So you still believe that you could still have another baby.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And because we already had a daughter who, at an early age, we knew that we wanted to have our kids kind of like pretty close in age, and not to have them too separate. And so, the end of 2018, we kind of made the decision like, hey, we want to try to have another kid, and we get pregnant, and about we're about 8 weeks in, and at this point, just because with the miscarriage, we'd already announced it, and so it was like people knew about it, and so then to have to like come back and like and to tell people that, like that was one of the harder things, is having to relitigate something like that over and over with people who were like asking, hey, like how's the pregnancy. And so we for this third one,
So she's pregnant again now.
Mhm, she's pregnant again.
You're 8 weeks in.
Yep. 8 weeks in, we've told nobody, because again, we don't want to have to. Because we genuinely had the fear that we were just gonna have to walk through everything that we just did again.
So at 12 weeks, the first time, that's when she lost baby.
Yeah.
Now she's pregnant again, and you're 8 weeks in.
Yeah.
So you're coming up on the same mile marker.
Yeah. And I remember like even getting pregnant and leading up, but as we're kind of like approaching the stage that we were in, that the miscarriage happened previously, like we were genuinely were afraid of like, man, like what if all this happens again? What if we just have to relitigate everything that we just experienced and walked through?
Well, you have a good reason to be worried.
Yeah.
It did just happen.
Yeah. And even from like because you asked about like a crisis of faith type thing. Like even for me, I'm like, am I gonna sit here and try to pray to God
Again?
and just for everything to fall apart again? So about the 8, 9, 10 week mark, nobody knows. We've told nobody. And one day, Britt, she just calls her dad. I don't even know what she was even calling him about. I don't think it was even about the pregnancy, but she called him, and her dad picks up, and before she can't even like get any words out, she just begins to cry. And
Is she stressing about the baby at this point as well, just like you? You guys are both feeling the anxiety of
I feel like
repeating the.
It seems like at this moment, like the anxiety of it is kind of just starting to like mount up, and like
You're coming up on the mile marker.
yeah. And she calls her dad and just begins to cry. And her dad on the other line, these are the words that he tells her. He says, Britt, I know. God showed me that you guys are pregnant. And again, we had told nobody. Nobody knew. He says, God showed me that you're pregnant. God showed me that it's going to be a boy, because we had been hoping it was going to be a boy because we'd already had a girl. He says it's going to be a boy, and the baby's going to be all right. And you have nothing to worry about. And that message, again, similar to at least for me personally, to the teenage boy that message was a reminder that even in things that we can't explain, like I can't explain why we had a miscarriage, and I'll never know why. But even in the midst of things that we can't explain, even in the midst of like the despair and the anxiousness and the fear that we were living in, worried that we were gonna have another miscarriage, in the midst of all these feelings and emotions and things that we're wrestling with, God through Britt's dad, God reminded us that I'm with you, and that I'm going to see everything. I'm going to see you through the thing that you are the most fearful of. That I'm going to walk you through this, and I'm telling you now, before you get there, that everything's going to be fine. And it was just again like another moment of wondering if God's forgotten. It was another moment of wondering if God had abandoned us. It was another moment of wondering if God cared. And in the midst of all those questions, God spoke through somebody else to remind us that you're not forgotten, you're not abandoned, and I'm walking with you.
So you hadn't told anybody about the pregnancy, and without prompting, her dad says, I know you're pregnant.
Yeah.
It's going to be a boy, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Did he tell you how God spoke to him, or did he allude to that at all? Or
it was actually just in his own prayer time. He said that God had just showed him, like, just kind of he gave him a vision of Britt just holding a baby boy in her arms, and just through this picture that God gave him, God has said like this is where I'm taking Nick and Britt to.
Wow. Reassurance like that is rare.
Mm.
Yeah, it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So what did you guys do after you got that information? Did it change how you felt, the anxiety you had? Did it change your...
Yeah, it definitely helped. Like, it wasn't such an overwhelming dread that we kind of felt about the pregnancy. There were still, like, I'd be lying to say that if there were still not like questions or wondering like, oh man, like what ifs kind of a thing. But yeah, we went through the pregnancy. We did find out, in fact, was a baby boy.
So you did have a baby boy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he was right about everything.
The whole thing. Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful.
Mm.
To know that God speaks that clearly to people and then through people.
Yeah.
Between that teenage kid and between her dad.
Yeah. The thing that stands out to me, and oftentimes is just kind of a good reminder to me, at least, is that God cares and loves. Like in those situations, God cared and loved me so much and loved Britt so much that he wanted to just remind us that everything was going to be fine. Like in both those instances.
And technically, I mean, if you looked at it technically, you didn't earn that. You didn't like, oh, I have so much faith, it's going to be fine, and he's going to remind us on either one of those. You were questioning the outcome of both of those scenarios, both of those stories, between you becoming a pastor and also whether the baby was going to be healthy.
Yeah.
You didn't have to earn that. God gave that to you.
Yeah. In spite of probably the lack of faith that I had, God still did it.
So he's not a vengeful God.
Yeah, no, that not at all. That has not been my experience. Just again, like it would seem like a reasonable thing for me to tell God, hey God, I'm quitting, and God just to like, okay, like it would seem reasonable for us, in those kind of situations, and yet, even though we would likely act differently, and we'd probably say, hey, yeah, if you're done, you're done, but instead, like in spite of the faith that I had in God, God just out in His goodness chose to speak directly to me, to just reaffirm every doubt and every question and everything that I was wrestling with, and nothing less than an act of the love of God.
Do you draw from those experiences now when your faith is tested?
Yeah, and because there have even been times in our life, and there have been just things that, um, there have been times where like when we had kids and we're struggling with money, like, man, we don't even have enough money to buy diapers. And the thing that me and Brett say all the time to each other is that we remember what God has done for us previously. And like that time with the diapers, we show up and there were literally was boxes of diapers on our front door from some anonymous person that we still to this day don't know who did it. We've had,
Wow.
yeah, we've had, and other times where we've had like just checks kind of show up in our mail unannounced from people. And like, there's just been numerous times for us of when God just like shows up and just moves in our life when we need it. In all of my experiences, I have found time and time again that God is trustworthy. No matter what the occasion, no matter what the circumstance, that I can always put my trust in God, and God will always see it through.
That's a very moving story. I think it's important. I know that in my own life, I've had questions about what I'm supposed to be doing, and I want to do what I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't know. And that's extremely inspiring to hear that happen to you, and to know that God does love us like that. All right, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Thank you for that, for sharing that. That's it's hard to put yourself out there like that. How long were you interning as a youth pastor before you started questioning your faith, or not faith, but your walk, whether you were called or not?
Yeah. So at that point, I had been like in the January of 2016. I'd already been interning for pretty close to a year, and so I think it was honestly for about the 3 months previous, so like November, December, and January. Because again, like for me and my struggles, like, man, like I've been here for about a year, and like what has happened. And so yeah, I feel like it was toward the ninth through the 12th month, so that kind of close to that year mark is when I started to have those thoughts of like, yeah, I don't know if this is for me.
Were there things happening in your internship that would make you think that maybe it wasn't happening for you? Like, were you making mistakes? Was there people saying, I don't like?
No, honestly, it was, and I think it's something that we can all be like fall in the trap of. It was really me seeing what God was doing in other people's lives. It was me seeing how these other leaders are the people of like how they were doing things, and like there was like tangible evidence of the things that they were doing. And I'm looking at all these people of like who can like point to these things, and I'm like, man, like I've been here for a year and I have nothing. And so it was real. It was I was really just comparing myself to them of like I'm not doing these things like they are. Like I'm not, like I don't have the things to show like they have. And because of that, like this just must not be for me, because if it was for me, I would be just like them.
So you could see other people, quote unquote, making a difference, and you didn't feel like what you were doing was making a difference. Is that what was happening?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how that would just be discouraging, especially in that line of work.
Yeah.
So had you been bringing your issues with your questioning of your path for a while, or did you bring all that to him that weekend, or how long had you been telling God that, listen, I don't know if this is for me?
Yeah. So honestly, it was kind of something that I kind of just been rolling around in my head for some time for the last few months, and then
Not praying, but just thinking for yourself.
correct, yeah. And then it wasn't until that event that we had, that 3-day event, that because honestly, I was when we going in there like, yeah, like I'm a leader and I'm helping like put these things on and doing these things, but there's a part of me that genuinely, and it's kind of funny now, that genuinely was like God, I need you to do something for this like retreat for these 3 days, because this is it for me. This is my last straw.
So you kind of laid down the gauntlet and said, God, I need to see something.
Yeah. Which is why we get to the last night, and I feel like nothing's changed. I feel like I don't feel any different from when I got there. And so like I get to the last night and I'm like, yeah, I guess this isn't for me. Like I'm done.
I guess I got my answer, didn't
Yeah,
I?
I'm not doing it. Yeah. And then the last night is when that boy comes up and changes everything. Like literally, if you take that moment away, my life is probably so different. So different.
Wow, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. How long did you spend with that boy?
Gosh, honestly, it was probably about um, close to 2 years. Close to 2 years, because then once we actually, because interning there, but then once we took a youth pastor job, it was at a different church, and he was still in high school, and so we still met in different things like that. But as far as like when I was like heavily involved in his life, it was probably about a year and a half.
But I mean, that night, how long did you spend with him?
Oh, I spent about, so in that moment, I've got probably good like 10 minutes of like just me just initially saying, hey, like I've walked through this. Like I know what you're feeling. I know what you're experiencing. Like I want to walk through this with you. And then we talked about it later. We get back to like our dorms for the night, and we kind of talk about it more and kind of lay out like a game plan type of a thing of like what we're gonna do.
Did you know the moment he came up to you that you were getting your answer from God, or did it take a minute to soak in that God was responding to your concerns?
Yeah, that's a good question too. When he comes up and I look up at him, I can see tears in his eyes. Um, I immediately thought like, okay, like something's up, like there's something happening. And then just as he begins to say the things that he says, like I'm hearing him, but in like the back of my mind, I'm kind of like replaying over the things that I just prayed, the things that I just said to God, and it's this moment of like this realization of like the thing I was just praying about, like I'm seeing the answer, God's answer in real time, like at the exact same time.
So you did recognize what was happening to you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really, really cool, man.
Mm.
I don't know if I would recognize it right then. I might have to look back on it and realize, oh, God was telling me the answer to the question I was asking.
Mm. Yeah.
But you felt it right then.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was just because I was just so, I was so desperate, and I was so, yeah, I'm really desperate. I think I was just so desperate to have something physical, that as soon as something physical like was present, like I immediately recognized it. I'm like, okay, like God, you're doing this.
So he served it up to you the exact way you needed it.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh, we have a beautiful God.
Mm. It's so good. Yeah. Because if it would have been like this, just the way that I am, like if you would have come up and just said some kind of vague thing of like, hey, can you, I just think that like I'm glad you're here, or whatever. Like just if it was some like very vague general thing, I wouldn't have taken it, and I would have been like, cool, but I'm still quitting tomorrow. Um, but yeah, and just the specificity in the way that he did it was something that I personally would have needed to recognize.
It was very personal. He poured into you the specific problems that you'd had
Mhm.
earlier in life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you knew that this was a problem that he came to you, but he didn't know anything about your earlier experiences.
Yeah, no. Yeah, he just expressed it, and everything he was expressing, I'm like, yeah, like I've been there and I know it, and I know that I can help walk you through it.
Wow, that's really powerful, Nick.
Mm.
That's really powerful. So let's fast forward to when you guys you've already had the miscarriage,
Mm.
and you've licked your wounds. You're you know getting back up. Did you guys decide to have another baby? Did you guys make a conscious decision together? Did you guys talk about it? Say, all right, we're going to try to have another baby.
Yeah, actually, I remember we did make, it was like a conscious decision, because we were driving to my parents' house one day. I remember just sitting in the car, and we were just talking about it, and we were both because Britt has a younger brother who is like he's graduating high school this year, so there's like a wide age gap between them, um, and so we knew that we wanted to have like all of our kids in a close proximity, and so I remember we made the decision driving one day to my parents' house of like there was a sense of like worry, obviously because of the miscarriage,
Right.
but there was also like hey, let's go for it.
We either got to do this
Yeah.
or not do this because we don't want a big gap
Yeah.
in age of the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's really nice. So when Britt called her dad that day, um, he obviously knew nothing about the baby.
Mhm.
She wasn't showing because she's only 8 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Did he just launch into that?
Yeah.
Or were they just talking in conversation and she brought it up?
Yeah, no, which is also a crazy thing because she called and she couldn't even like speak. She immediately starts to cry as soon as her dad answers, and then Britt can actually hear him.
She felt it right away.
Yeah, and then she can hear him kind of like crying a little bit on his end. And Britt doesn't say anything. They're both kind of like crying on the phone without saying a word. And then Britt's dad just says, "Britt, I know. I already know. God told me." And then share the rest of it.
And then he predicted you were going to have a boy, and you did. How old is your son now?
He's about to turn 6 this summer.
Oh, so he's healthy. He's
Yeah.
good to go.
Thriving, living his best life.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that's a beautiful story, Nick. I got to tell you, I mean, there's a lot of people that have got to be, in the desert with their own experiences and wondering if God's going to, redirect them or keep them on the path. And apparently God does show up. I don't imagine, I mean, he does it his own way. So I wouldn't consider it, this a prediction of anything. But at the same time, he does speak to us through other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's often, I think sometimes we can miss that. I feel like sometimes we have this idea of how God is going to speak. And I think oftentimes, I think the most often ways that God will speak to us is often through other people. And it's it's from God when it's in a way that only that like it can't be faked, it can't be manufactured, it can't be like again for me with the teenager. Like if it was some general thing, I wouldn't have taken it. With Britt's dad, like what he said should have been impossible for him to know.
It is impossible for him to just know on his own.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And yeah, I just think that I think it's a reminder to me as well that in the way that God used that teenager and used Britt's dad to like affirm and do things in our own life. I think it's just a healthy reminder to me that there could be times that God wants to use all of us to do the exact same thing, and we may not even know. Like that teenager had no idea what I was walking. He had no idea what I was thinking. He had no idea what I was about to do the next day.
He just followed whatever feeling he was getting.
Felt. Yep. Because he literally walked up and said, "I just feel like I need to tell you specifically," and I think it's just a reminder of like,
you got to let God use you.
Yeah, even if you don't understand it. And you may never know the impact and
typically you
result
wouldn't
of it. Yeah,
I don't imagine you would. I don't imagine God would have to tell you everything that He's using you for.
Yeah,
that might be just too much. Like,
yeah,
what's all that?
Yeah. And honestly, like not like me sharing this, I don't think that teenager, and I still know him. I don't think I've ever told him. Like he doesn't know that in that moment of him coming to me was. As much as he needed, like helping what he was doing, God was using him in that moment to help somebody else, to help me.
If he hears this podcast, will he know it's him?
He would, yeah.
He would?
He would.
You better tell him.
I will. For sure.
All right. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your faith now, your walk with faith and how you do it, and a couple of things that we call the top three. Okay?
Yeah.
So I want you to answer these top three questions without thinking about it. I want you to just fire off the answers off the top of your head.
Okay. High pressure.
No, not high pressure, just authentic first response answers.
For sure.
What are the top three things in your life that push you away from God?
Oh, that pushed me away.
Or lure you away?
One for sure would be isolation. Like if I'm just kind of on my own, because I'm naturally a very introverted person, and I recognize that.
As a youth pastor, huh?
Yeah. Like honestly, I love being home. Like ask my wife, I love being home. I'm just very much a homebody type of person. But I've recognized, and there have been times in my life where I feel that when I'm just kind of doing things on my own and I'm not plugged into like relationships with other people, that it's very easy to get in your head about different things. It's very easy to kind of spiral out when you're on your own. Whereas when you're around people, like they can like speak into your life and to affirm and encourage and those kind of things. Like it's really that's really helpful for me. Um, a big one for me is when I'm not spending personal time, um, whether it's in prayer or whether it's like in scripture. Because I feel like, especially speaking as somebody who is a pastor, I think it's really easy to get into the habit of just praying and just reading because you're a pastor and not because you have a relationship with God.
It's work, not
Correct. Yeah. Like if the only time I'm reading my word is to prepare a sermon, like that's a problem.
it's not feeding you. It's only
Correct. Yeah.
you feeding others.
Yeah. And so like, and I've just recognized that if I don't do that, like there's just a very tangible, like I feel like I'm a different person. I feel like I treat my other people different, not as great. Like I'm not the husband I'm supposed to be. Like I just like there's a tangible difference. I feel like when I'm not like, doing those things.
Right. That's two.
And then number three would probably be that lure me away from God. Honestly, I'd probably say my own pride.
Pride. That's a big one.
Yeah, I feel like, and I'll just be honest. I sometimes I can struggle with the desire to be acknowledged, the desire to be um, to receive not adoration, but just like to receive like, hey, like you're doing a good job, like to be recognized in those kind of things. And I think that the danger of that is that it can be very easy to pursue and run after those things and to make those things your sole ambition. Um, and so, or even like, I think I don't personally like in regards to pride, like sometimes I think I just know what's best all the time. Um, and and yeah, so I think for me, pride is something that I try to be very, very aware of in my own life because I just feel like pride can not only usually pride doesn't only hurt you, but it usually hurts other people as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. So next question. Top three things that bring you closer to God. If you feel like you're far away from God, what are the top three things that you do right away to reconnect?
yeah, number one for me is just like praying. Like I just for me, like when I'm home or sometimes if I'm at the church, like I'll just put music on and I'll just like pray. Like sometimes and it's not like pretty prayers. It's not like God, like thank you for everything. Sometimes it's legitimately like God, I'm tired, God, I'm whatever else. And it's just like I feel like for me and the real prayers that I can pray by myself and nobody else is looking, nobody else is around. That I know personally I need those kind of things. I need just like to have that kind of personal time with God.
Not worship, but prayer,
Yeah.
conversation where you hand it to Him,
Just like pouring my heart out,
Just-
everything.
being super honest with God.
Yeah.
Even though He already knows,
Mm.
He wants you to say it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool. All right. That's
Um,
one. Number two.
Number two, and this is gonna sound like an obvious answer from somebody who's a pastor, but I would say like being in church. Like for me, there's just something about being with a group of other people who share the same faith and are unified together, who like lift up the name of Jesus. Like worship to me, like I'm often so moved by just by worship and just by like giving God like what he deserves, what he is worthy of. Um, so I'd say prayer, worship, and then yeah, and then just the word. And I feel like these all sound like your typical answers that people would give, but um,
If they work, they work.
yeah, yeah. But like the word, like scripture is just so powerful to me because it shows us. I would say a scripture shows us three things. It shows us who God is. It shows us who we are, and then it shows the relationship that we have with God. Like in the essence, like we find out who God is by reading word. Like when it talks about like who like the names of God, like describe who he is, and the promises that God gives describes who God is. And it describes who we are in that, like as sinners, and like what humanity is capable of doing, as capable of doing good as much as it is capable of doing bad. And then thirdly, how does the relationship with God and humanity exist together, and that's where Jesus comes in. And yeah, I just think like, if you're not reading your word, I think you're always going to have a very tenuous grasp or a difficult time understanding who God is if you're not reading like God's revelation provided to you of who he is. So yeah, for me, those are the big, and probably it'd be in that order. Prayer has to be a number one for me.
Pray, worship, and read.
Worship and read.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, Nick, I really appreciate you coming and sharing and opening yourself up, your true self up, and your vulnerabilities, so that people could hear exactly what you went through, and hopefully they can feed off of what happened to you, and get closer to God and give God what they have going on in their own hearts.
Yeah.
And maybe they can find some sort of solace in their desert walk with their lives and with God. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey there, and thanks for listening. If you're enjoying this story, be sure to hit that like, follow, or subscribe button so you can hear other amazing stories from other ordinary people, sharing how God has revealed his power, grace, and love in their everyday lives. If you know anyone who needs to hear this story, don't hesitate to share it. It could make all the difference to them.